My grandmother lives in Fife. She's currently the only member of my family to still reside there. I don't see her moving anytime soon. Back in 1997, I paid her a weekend visit, and she presents this to me. Story and Song Collection. There's a group of songs in this one. Songs in Thomas and Friends? When the hell did that happen? I must watch. Of course, this was 1997. YouTube was nearly a decade away, so I'd never heard any Thomas-related songs before. Let's see where this goes. Okay, it's VCI, seems legit. Most of the videos I have at this point are VCI.
Roll up, step this way and take your seat, please. The show is about to begin. Music, maestro, please.
What the hell? Okay, 20 years ago, I was convinced that this was just a butchered version of a similar promo from Chase's Races and Runaways. I had seen that first, so I just expected it to say,
"And now you can sing along with Thomas too."
Alas, that did not happen. The first 20 seconds are virtually identical, barring a different voiceover. It goes on to talk about Four Ways Farm, those freakish teddy bears, Rosie and Jim, Tots TV. This all means nothing to me. Oh wait, Brum, I know him. I watched him a little bit. I can't say much, but I at least know him. Overall, there's nothing truly wrong with this ad, but I can't help but find it bizarre that it's presented like it's a circus. And it turns out it's not butchered, because this video actually came out a year before Chase's. It doesn't mean much, it still sucks. Then again, there's something kids will do more with a video than adults would. Yeah, you don't expect kids to actually watch this crap, do you? Get real, people! And now to the main event, Story and Song Collection. 5 songs and 5 episodes from Season 4, narrated by Michael Angelos. Oh no.
His name's...
Nope, nuh-uh, nope, not gonna let it happen. Nope, not gonna happen. That shit just isn't gonna roll. Okay, moving on. I will say this much about the video. Since this series was a big focus in my life, I remember it being super short. I didn't think about it so much with something like Minivid, but this one felt too short. I liked the video, don't get me wrong, I was 4 years old at the time, but when we reached Mind That Bike, it always hit me. Ah crap, this is it. As such, I regard Mind That Bike as the worst episode in this collection. The best episode, however... Now, if this was the multi-language series, that would be a super easy question.
An elephant pushed me! An elephant pushed me!
But as a child, I probably ranked Thomas and the Special Letter highest. Why?
Because I wanted to, I had an overwhelming desire to.
It's true. Now as for the songs, they're okay. Look guys, I'm 24 years old. Unless I'm using them for the multi-language series, I don't care about them, and they're not worth my time. If I had to say anyway, my second favourite Thomas song is from 1998, and my all-time favourite would not be created for another decade. As a kid, I had Thomas We Love You burnt into my brain, and was one of the 2 songs I usually sing to myself at school, the other being the theme for an outdated TV show from 1996. These days, pass. I have more worthwhile songs to care about.
Get more love. Get more love.
Now that was one video from my grandparents. Let's have a look at another one. Next we look at this one.
Pinocchio, the story of the wooden puppet who wanted to become a real boy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is Pinocchio from 1940, Disney's second feature film and an absolute classic. Even for a movie that highlights kidnap and child slavery, I loved it so much my grandmother actually threatened to bin her copy of the movie if I kept watching it. True story, and to this day I'm not sure whether or not she was serious. It doesn't matter anyway, she doesn't have a VCR anymore. And despite it probably being in my top 10 list for Disney movies, I haven't actually seen the movie in at least 5 years. What a perfect time to recount stories! My grandmother had the 1995 version, We're going to look at the 2000 version because that is the only one I currently have in my possession. Well, not the only version of the movie, but we'll get to that later. Copyright notices, oh joy, closed caption decoder, never had one, blah 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 blah.
Welcome to a world of fantasy, music, and magical entertainment. The Disney Video Collection. But don't be tempted to buy a cheap illegal pirate copy, or you might just hear about it from your children.
Mum, it's no good. The picture's all funny. I can't hear it.
Your mum wants a pirate copy, you can't hear it, and I don't know anyone else can either. I will admit one thing, compared to what's on The Lion King, it's certainly a very peppy warning. Sure, the narrator may sound serious, but the music sure as hell doesn't. Coming soon from Disney Videos. Now we have a promo for Sleeping Beauty. What is it in this series about having promos for movies I've never fucking seen? 12 episodes in and every time there's a promo for something I haven't seen. Well, I saw Fox and the Hound and I guess Singing Cattle World Tour, but that's about it for the series. I either haven't seen it or I'm super vague on it. Now we have Tarzan. Oh, for Christ's sake! I've seen it 2 or 3 times. My girlfriend loves the movie and loves Phil Collins. Yeah, I got nothing. I know Phil Collins at least. He's a lefty player, sort of like me. He loves Ringo, like me. Ah, forget it. Available now on Disney Videos. Yeah, if you grew up with these videos, you'll memorize those words easily.
In the grand tradition of classic Disney animation, comes Walt Disney's original classic, The Aristocats.
Thank you! Finally, a movie I know incredibly well. This was one of my first Disney movies. I had to know this one, and I certainly do, and it was certainly good. It's no Lion King or Toy Story, but it was good. I'll have to cover this at some point. And here we have Mulan. Oh, for fuck! I can't say anything. I've seen it once. It features Eddie Murphy. Whatever. And finally we begin. Jesus, so much I haven't seen.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Oh, that song. We'll talk about that later. So this is Pinocchio. We have Geppetto, a lonely old man with a cat, a fish, and a fuck ton of clocks, who carves himself a wooden puppet and makes a wish on a star that his creation could be a real boy. That night, a freakish fairy breaks into the house, grants life into Pinocchio, and dubs a stray, eavesdropping cricket known as Jiminy as Pinocchio's conscience, and leaves it to him to teach the kid the difference between right and wrong. Why?
Prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish, and someday you will be a real boy.
A real boy!
That won't be easy.
There we go. The next hour or so features Pinocchio's disastrous attempts to get from point A to point B without a hint of trouble, whether it be sold into child labour for a puppet master called Stromboli, or be turned into a donkey by someone who runs a do-whatever-you-please amusement park.
Fine conscience. I turned out to be. Late the first day. Oh well. He can't get in much trouble between here and school.
Oh, if only he knew. That's basically Acts A and B of the movie. The introduction features the birth of Pinocchio, Act A begins the next day when he's trying to go to school, and Act B begins as Pinocchio tries to return home and is whisked away by Honest John to Pleasure Island. Both times Pinocchio does wrong, Jiminy tries to reassure/rescue him, they get busted the first time by the fairy who frees them with a warning, and they proceed to run like hell. After diving into the ocean and finally returning to an empty house, Pinocchio receives a heavenly note from the fairy stating that his old man was out looking for him and has been eaten by a massive whale known as Monstro. By some lucky stroke, Geppetto is still alive. And by another lucky stroke, Pinocchio doesn't swell at all when submerged in water. He may be alive, but he's still made of wood. That's the power of Disney for you. Big Boy decides to feed on fish, inadvertently crossing the path of Pinocchio and Jiminy. Pinocchio advises his old man to burn a mass amount of wood and make the whale sneeze. Whale goes boom, they escape on a raft. Pinocchio drags his father into a cave, which Monstro proceeds to plough into, sending the heroes into a beach free of danger. Jiminy finds Pinocchio drowned in a pool. How he drowns there and not in a massive ocean, I will never know. Geppetto takes him home, and the fairy revives Pinocchio and grants him flesh and blood. Because if Little Nicky has taught us anything, self-sacrifice is the most noble thing you can do. The only difference here is that this is an actual good movie and Little Nicky is debatably bad. That's the basic gist of the movie, and what it teaches kids. Do the right thing, don't talk to strangers, and everything will be hunky-dory with life, unless you're a wooden boy with zero knowledge of what's good or bad, in which case you're probably screwed. And that wraps up Pinocchio. It's just as good as I remember. No closing promos, which surprises the heck out of me since nearly every Disney video I own has end promos. Yeah, what can you do? But you know, there is another video I need to talk about. It was December 1999, Christmas Day to be exact. I hadn't seen my grandmother in a few good months, so I was running without this movie for a decent bit of time. Obviously I couldn't have that. So I've done what kids always do on Christmas Day, and I decided to have a browse through the TV guide. And what do you know, Pinocchio's going to be running at 12:05. That is totally the most convenient thing ever. I grabbed the first recordable tape I could find and I was set to go. I came across this tape, again 18 years later, and I was surprised it still worked. I mean, sure, the video aged like milk left out in the summer heat, but it still worked. Massive nostalgia overload.
Say goodbye to 1999 from $1.99 at Sainsbury's, making life taste better.
I rest my case. Speaking of nostalgia, let's talk about When You Wish Upon a Star. It's one of the most iconic children's songs ever recorded. It's actually the signature song for the Disney company. Looks like this movie is very highly regarded. You know what, let's have a listen to the first verse of that song and relive our childhoods. I peg this version from this tribute album from 1988. Stay awake, various interpretations of music from vintage Disney films. What a title. And go figure, it's the last song on the album. Okay, let's have a listen.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you.
Motherfucking yes. As if I didn't love Pinocchio enough. Right, that's one of the most iconic Disney movies of all time covered. Time to put the videos back. The regular one goes in the cupboard here. And as for the ITV tape, this goes in the recordable Fridays drawer. Every video I've ever covered is in this single drawer. Kids do record a lot when they have access to TV. Right, I know what I'm going to talk about next. What's the number one thing kids love every weekend? Cartoon marathons. You've had a busy time at school and now you're free to chill every Friday through Sunday with several hours of all your favourites. If you had a VCR in the 1990s and you had a channel of your favourites, whether it be Disney, Cartoon Network or any of the Nick channels, and you had some recordable videos, you were set for life. Disney, Nick and Cartoon Network were the way to go. The first example of a cartoon marathon in my life was on none of these channels. Let me ask my British viewers here. Who here remembers Dig It? No one? Okay, I know what to look at. Something that will sum up Dig It perfectly.
Hey!
We're the Whopper!
Didn't we get to the point here?
New cartoon mayhem. Dig It in 2000.
Yep, it was all Disney related. And yet it wasn't on Disney. Yeah, whatever. I was 5 years old when I began watching this, and it was 1998. I was also starting school as well. What perfect timing. I swear this entire topic is just going to scream perfect timing. So I had school 5 days a week, oh joy, and then I had Dig It on Saturday and Sunday. It began at 7:10 on Saturday and 8 AM on a Sunday. These days, if someone told me to wake up that early on a weekend, I'd tell them to fuck right off. Back in the 90s, however, it only meant more cartoons. The positives immediately outweighed the negatives. 101 Dalmatians, Recess, Timon and Pumbaa, Jungle Cubs, PB&J, I'll take it! This ran until 2003, so that's 5 full years of this every weekend. By the time it ended, I was well into my Cartoon Network period, so I had no issues whatsoever. I wasn't allowed to watch Ed, Edd n Eddy, but I had plenty to work with. I assure you, there was a rational reason for the ban on the Eds.
Dorks! Dorks?
And speaking of Cartoon Network, let's talk briefly about Super Chunk, a weekly event in both Britain and America. 2 straight hours of certain cartoons every Saturday and Sunday. I watched it quite regularly. I actually have a recording of one such broadcast from 2000. I don't remember it running for that long over here, but it was definitely a thing. I remember watching a Tom and Jerry broadcast once. I'm a bit of a Tom and Jerry fan. But forget about Super Chunk. There was something else on Cartoon Network. Something for kids every week. Cartoons. Cartoons every Friday. What did they call it?
1, 2, 3, 4. Cartoon Fridays. Cartoon Fridays. Cartoons Fridays.
Superb title. Incredibly original too. For millions of kids, this was their childhood. Every Friday, 2 hours of the classics. Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Johnny Bravo, what have you. Plus a few new things thrown in every couple of weeks. Friday was just the perfect day for cartoon marathons. Slog through school for the first 5 days, race home on Friday, and we begin the weekend with style.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
Unfortunately, I don't remember having it in Britain. I mean, the Cartoons brand was definitely active back in the old days, but as far as I can recall, we didn't have it over here, which is a bloomin' shame. Although I suppose I was busy with a certain other children's series and it may have just slipped my mind. And speaking of Cartoon Fridays, it's time we talked about my favourite period of time when it came to TV. I've talked about it before, but I feel the need to bring it up again, because now I have the evidence. While we may not have had Cartoon Fridays per se, we did have something similar. I've highlighted it several times in Recordable Fridays, but it's now time to talk about my feelings.
Come join the fun at Cartoon Network, where cartoons live.
The Toon City era was launched on UK Cartoon Network in April 2005. Within a month, they were running a 2-hour block labelled simply as Cartoons. It was a very vague title, but it probably still worked its magic on me. When I think about those 2 words, this is what I remember. Cartoons are the classics I watch every day. Okay, I'm convinced. Dexter's Laboratory, Hi Puffy Amiyumi, Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, Codename Kids Next Door, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Kevin Chicken, I Am Weasel, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Billy and Mandy. Never the same episodes, never the same block twice, always a fresh set every single night. It probably only took me 1 or 2 rounds to make me realise this was the greatest thing ever. Hell, by May I was already taping it. This is from 2005 and is one of my favourite tapes in my entire collection. Every time I saw this nighttime promo at 10:59, I knew I was set for the night. It's thanks to this 2-hour period that I grew to love Billy and Mandy and Codename Kids Next Door, my second and third favourite cartoons. Sure, with Billy and Mandy it took a few months, but I got there eventually.
Even a complete and total nincompoop can do it!
Like you?
Yeah! Like you!
Now, we need to talk about convenience, how well everything was timed. For one thing, this began in 2005 when I was beginning high school, aka the worst 4+ years of any human's life. When I was at my grandmother's house, I usually slept in the living room where her skybox was. As I mentioned before, I was always guaranteed something different every night. When it did begin, I had my own Sky Plus box in my bedroom, so when I was watching, I wasn't disturbing anyone. When it finished at 1 AM, it was generally bedtime for me. At this time, after the 2-hour session ended, Cartoon Network proceeded to air 2 of my least favourite cartoons, The Cramp Twins and Gadget Boy. Sure, there was Ned's Newt and Kids Next Door, but I could live without Ned's Newt. And as for Kids Next Door, it was the exact same episode that was shown earlier, so I'm missing nothing. For my opinions on Gadget Boy, I refer you to this video. It's not enough Gadget Boy sucked, but it also ran for 3 straight hours, 2 AM to 5 AM. It never aired during the day, just these 3 hours when I was asleep. No complaints here. I wake up in the morning, all straight back to Cartoon Network, CN2 and Toon Disney / Disney Cinemagic. Every single hour of the day, good stuff on all 3 channels. Then of course, there's the negative side to this era. With this 2-hour block, there was a slight issue with advertising. While there was a decent mix of ads airing during the day, when it was CC time, quite often you only saw 1 ad, maybe 2 if you were lucky for the entire night. Let us remember that this was 12 individual cartoons spread out over 2 hours. That means that unless you pre-recorded the block, you're going to see the exact same commercial at least 12 fucking times. I'm serious. With this video from June 2005, it's either a promo for My Pet Alien or Battle Beat'em, 2 shows I have never seen and care even less about after having to endure endless promos for them. I actually went back to the video and counted. In the 3 hours between Dexter's Laboratory and the beginning of Gadget Boy, there's 17 adverts, and it's only these 2. 8 times for Battle Beat'em and 9 times for Pet Alien. If you didn't like Pet Alien before this, you sure as shit are not going to like it afterwards. Then there's Camp Lazlo. After a couple of years, Cow and Chicken was dropped in favour of Camp Lazlo, something I really do not like and have never liked. On the positive side, I distinctly remember Dexter's Laboratory airing at the exact same time on Cartoon Network 2. I could easily switch over for 10 minutes while Camp Lazlo ran. And then there's the big letdown. I've talked about this before, I think twice. It ran from 2005 every single night of the year and ended December 31st, 2010. January 2011 hits, and Cartoon Network goes under pretty radical rejuvenation. All the classics are literally gone overnight. And it remained the same for over 6 years. Even those precious 2 hours every night were gone. These days, I'd be cool with how Cartoon Network is right now if I could just have those 2 hours back. I would be 100% fine with that. Alas, I don't see it happening anytime soon. Whenever a classic cartoon returns to the air, it never lasted. So 6 years later, these videos are the only links to cartoons that I still have. There's 2 crimes here, really. Number 1 is the obvious one. I should have recorded more. I could have invested a fair amount of money into recordable videos or DVDs and recorded as much as I could. Looking back, it probably would have helped had I known it wouldn't have lasted. Even if it was just 1 recording a week, it would have been all good in my books. Then there's problem number 2. In my eyes, this is a capital offence. I should have recorded more Ed, Edd n Eddy.
Say what?
Yeah, I'm serious on this one. I've been a lover for Cartoon Network for nearly 20 years, and Ed, Edd n Eddy is my favourite cartoon of all time. And in my entire collection, I only hold 4 episodes. That's 4 out of 131, not including the movie. I own more episodes of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and that wouldn't even crack my top 5 list for Cartoon Network shows. I suppose when you think about it, having these 2 videos is better than nothing. I could have loved the 2 hours for 5 years and have nothing to show for it. That's my entire video and DVD collection in a nutshell. You love something on TV? Show it. Okay, put these back. Happy times. Hey, why is this still out? Happy Holidays released in March 1999, featuring 3 music videos and 6 Season 5 episodes of Thomas and Friends narrated by... I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say his name. Every time I say his name, I need to make the joke. It's not happening. I'm not gonna do it. Right, I'm going to phone the police to make sure I don't say his name.
Oh, nothing gets past you uniform boys, eh?
Oy, oy, oy. If I could say one thing, the video cover is a massive lie. It features Thomas on the beach, and none of the episodes actually feature the beach. So Topham Hatt goes on holiday, sure, but the closest he gets to the beach is the station, Tidmouth Halt. Super. The only true reference to the beach in the entire video is in one of the songs. Yep, that's about it. Even Spooks and Surprises got closer to the beach, and that was mostly a video about accidents and characters being scared shitless. And you know, despite all that, I kinda want to say this is my favourite Season 5 video. It's true. With Season 5, there was only ever 3 home video releases in the UK, and I own all 3 of them. There's still one I haven't shown off, and while that one features my favourite classic Thompson Friends song, I actually think Happy Holidays has the best collection of episodes. I remember going back to this one a lot when I was younger. As a kid and as an adult, I'd have to say the best episode has to be A Better View for Gordon because, well... yeah.
Help me! Please!
Second favourite had to be By George. I really enjoyed that one.
Suddenly he saw a truck on the line ahead. Get out of my way! But the truck wouldn't move. Until Gordon forced it. By accident.
Okay, I'm a vigilante at heart. I like seeing shit get destroyed. Aren't we all like that every now and then? No? Get out of my house. As for my least favourite episodes on the video, this is probably going to be no surprise to anyone. Toby and the Flood. I don't necessarily hate it, I just think it doesn't make sense in places. Toby can make it across a really old bridge in a blizzard, but he can't make it across this bridge?
That's horseshit.
Plus, who's to say there's only one way back to safety? If there isn't, surely with an island that size, there's no doubt a station or a signal box on the other side of the dam. Actually, if there's a possibility of the dam breaking, why would they send a steam tramp, one of the slowest characters on Sodor, to investigate? Wouldn't it be safer to send Harold, who can escape by air should any danger befall people? Oh wait, they do send Harold, which means Toby's appearance was completely fucking pointless. Either way, I don't want to rag on this too much, it's no Sodor Surprise Day. It does have a pretty good rescue element to the story, no matter how stupid the original concept is. And then we have the songs, right at the end. 3 to be exact. I'd honestly say Season 5 had better songs than Season 4. These songs brainwashed me as a kid. If there were any Season 5 songs that were burned into my brain as a youngster, it was Harold the Helicopter. That's my musical brain for you. There were 10 songs in Season 5. Between these 3 videos, 7 of them are included. While Harold isn't my favourite song by a long shot, it was easily the most memorable for me as a kid. Because I know someone's going to ask, when I was in primary school in 1998 and 1999, there were always 5 songs that were locked into my primitive musical brain. My personal tastes in the late 1990s, you're welcome. So that's Happy Holidays, a super gem from my youth. Next time we look at that big bulge in the back of the cupboard. Next time we go back. In July 1985, a movie about a time-traveling teenager hit America and was a phenomenal success. It then went worldwide and in no time became one of the most beloved comedies of all time. It was called Spaceman from Pluto, I mean Back to the Future. Now when I say it became a beloved favourite, it certainly did, especially for me. Over the next few months, we're going to be looking back at Back to the Future and what the series means to me. How big of a fan am I? While I own several DVD box sets, I own the 25th anniversary Blu-ray trilogy, including Back to the Future: The Ride and Secrets of Back to the Future. I own the animated series on DVD. I own the slightly tamer novels. I own the Telltale video game for both PC and PlayStation 4. I even own a documentary on John DeLorean which features clips from Back to the Future, and I have my own personal collection of miniature scale DeLorean models. Several of them, in fact. They haven't aged super well. Now, if someone should ask, long hair dude, which version of Back to the Future should I buy? I'm thinking about investing. I would respond by saying, hey you, how did you get in my house? And after getting some answers, I'd recommend picking up the 4-disc Ultimate Edition or the 25th Anniversary Blu-ray. Between decent film quality and bonus features, I believe these releases offer the most. And since this is Video Memories, there's only one way to recount my childhood with Back to the Future. With the video release from 2002, because that box set was my first proper experience with the series. Duh! I say proper because I had briefly seen parts 2 and 3 on TV beforehand, and I can only assume this led to the videos. So in a very ironic twist, the first movie is the one I saw last. So let's look at part 1 first. So up first we have a home video promo for the iconic Steven Spielberg movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And guess what people, I haven't seen it. The Video Memories tradition continues. I know of E.T., he needs to phone home. I also know of that beloved Atari game from 1982. But nope, I have never actually watched the movie. And now to our feature presentation. Back to the Future stars Michael J. Fox as 17-year-old musician Marty McFly. After failing a high school band audition and receiving some stupid piece of paper about some stupid broken clock, he has come to the belief that his life is pretty much a failure and confesses to his girlfriend Jennifer that he shouldn't even bother trying anymore. That night, he receives a phone call from his close friend Dr. Emmett Brown, the local crackpot scientist who needs the kids' help with a late-night experiment. Marty joins the old man at the local mall and witnesses him kill his dog in a souped-up DeLorean. But plot twist, the dog is fine, and the DeLorean is a time machine.
The way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
After learning how the car works, a group of Libyan terrorists Doc Brown previously screwed over arrive on the scene and kill the doctor. Holy shit, that's violent! Innocent kids could be watching, you know. Martin escapes into the dangerous time machine and suddenly finds himself in 1955. After hiding the car and venturing into town, he discovers his loser father and some douchebag named Biff Tannen. It is truly a case of same shit, different year. The dork with a life preserver stalks his father to a residential area and prevents him from being trampled by an approaching car.
Stella! Another one of these damn kids jumped in front of my car!
Marty wakes up to find himself inside his mother's house. Super awkward, but I'm pretty sure nothing big will come of this. The kid heads across town and finds the 1955 version of Doc Brown and convinces him that a time machine exists, and eventually realizes that said time machine has caused him to endanger his own existence by preventing the initial meeting of his parents. It also turns out the time machine is out of plutonium, the necessary chemical required to power time travel. But they do have knowledge that a lightning bolt is due to strike an iconic building in Hill Valley, and it just so happens that a lightning bolt harnesses enough electricity to power this Y-shaped thing in the car that makes time travel possible. Convenient. So there's the gist of the movie. Marty has 6 days to get his parents back together before this lightning bolt strikes. Well, that shouldn't be too hard to fix.
Are you trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me?
Oh bollocks, I knew there'd be a catch. There is always a catch. Then again, in a way, without a catch there is no plot, and that would result in extreme boredom. or extreme stupidity like the Jackass series. Over the next few days, Marty invents the skateboard, invents Darth Vader, covers Biff's car in horse shit, and plays some very expensive Chuck Berry music before being able to bring his parents together and giving them the strength to live happily ever after. But before he can go home, he has to slip the old scientist a note for the future. Just a slight warning for the dangers ahead, and motherfucker, he rips it up! Well, that's it, he's doomed. After a very iconic climax, Marty returns to 1985 and races to the mall where he witnesses Doc Brown get murdered again by the Libyans. But this time, the old man was wearing a bulletproof vest. As it turns out, he kept the warning letter. That always caught me off guard when I was younger. In the clock tower sequence, I never actually saw him stick the remains of the note in his pocket. Marty returns home and discovers the next day that his family has changed for the better after his actions in 1955. His mother is no longer a raging alcoholic, his brother and sister aren't losers, and his father is no longer Biff's punching bag. And what's better, he has his own shiny pickup truck. Pure luxury and happiness. Until Doc Brown returns and tells of the bad news of Marty's and Jennifer's children. What bad news? What bad news?! Well, we shall find out in the future, you could say. And that's Back to the Future, one of the most iconic movies of all time and one of my all-time favourites. I generally go back to the trilogy at least twice a year, and it's always a great ride. Well, that's about it. Oh, wait, there's a anti-piracy warning at the end for some reason.
The pirates are out to get you.
What the hell?
Don't let them brand you with their mark. Piracy funds organised crime and will destroy our film and video industry.
Jesus Christ, in a chicken basket, that's dark. That will in no way traumatize a kid. I tell you, we've come a long way since this.
We want you to enjoy this video as much as possible. Unfortunately, there are many poor quality illegal videocassettes now available to buy or rent from sources other than reputable retailers.
Right, on that note, I need to go soothe my childlike brain from that horrifying piracy warning. Next time, we'll be looking at another popular film series, and in November, we will continue the Back to the Future retrospective with movie number 2. The next month is gonna be magic. Well, with this movie, that's pretty debatable. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Now, some may be surprised to know that this musician is actually a bit of a Harry Potter fan. I may not look the type, but it's true. I own the books, I've seen the movies at least a dozen times. I don't want to dedicate a million videos to the series, so I'm going to cover just one movie. Why am I covering Half-Blood Prince of all movies? Because to this day, this spectacular motion picture is one of the absolute worst movies I have ever seen. People have often debated which is better between the books and the movies. I will always take the sides of the books. The 4th through 8th movies have never really done the books true justice. And it always comes down to two small issues. Number 1, direction. The Harry Potter series has had this bad habit of going through movie directors like they were going out of fashion. From movies 2 through 5, they had 4 different directors, each of whom no doubt had their own vision of what each individual movie should be like, and it generally leads to pretty extreme inconsistencies and odd choices from one movie to another. An ideal example could be of how different spells look from one movie to another. Look at the stunning spell. It's red in Goblet of Fire. In every other movie, it's white. That's one big complaint of mine about the series under David Yates' direction. All the spell effects look boring. They're all white with the occasional green or blue thrown in. The movies would really have benefited from having the same director for every movie. They finally have it right for the Fantastic Beasts series, and I appreciate that. Number 2, the screenplay. This one involves condensing Goblet of Fire through Half-Blood Prince down to one movie each. The first 3 books were short enough to produce unbutchered movies. The last 4, on the other hand, those books range from 630 to 770 pages long, and they have to condense all that down to 2 hours. Inevitably, the movies suffered for it. As much as I enjoyed Goblet of Fire, it didn't exactly do the book 100% justice. Then came Order of the Phoenix, the longest book in the series, and for some reason also the shortest movie. You already know there's going to be trouble there. Nothing bad, but still watchable. Half-Blood Prince suffers the absolute worst, purely because it's the penultimate book and it's supposed to set up Deathly Hallows. It has a lot of shit to go through, and the movie covers very little of it, and it feels very unwatchable for me. It adds a lot of stupid shit that is just incredibly irrelevant and unnecessary, like that Death Eater attack on the burrow, the absolute worst scene in the entire movie series. You'd think the entire house would be better protected against Death Eaters. Dumbledore's been slacking. I'm not going to cover the plot in great detail, I'm just going to cover my complaints. I've mentioned the screenplay sucking, but there's also just how ugly the movie looks. You look at nearly any scene, it all looks dark and murky, like there's a constant storm hovering above Hogwarts. They may have intended this as a metaphor for the dark times approaching, but honestly it's just really unappealing to look at. There's also a surprising amount of comedy in the movie. Characters do and say stupid things that just feel very irrelevant. Once again, I feel the need to bring up the inconsistent direction. We had the occasional jokesters in Fred and George in the first 5 movies, but comedy was never this noticeable. There's just a lot of stupid things in this movie that don't feel right. Like Harry trying to pick up a girl in a Muggle cafe at the beginning of the movie. Why would he do that? He just lost his godfather barely 3 weeks prior. You think trying to score chicks would be a pretty low priority at this point. Harry is just so hormonal in the entire movie, it's just so fucking cringeworthy. Between this, him fantasizing about Ginny, and being rather interested in the fact that Romilda Vane, a complete stranger to him, finds him attractive. Why would he care about this? Hell, in the book, Harry has feelings for Ginny, but he's wary about acting on it as he's worried it will compromise his friendship with Ron. And yet in the movie, he just openly says to Ron that Ginny is rather attractive.
She's smart, funny, attractive.
Attractive?
You know, she's got nice skin.
Skin? You're saying Dean's dating my sister because of her skin?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying it could be a contributing factor.
Was this an attempt at comedy? Was this their way of saying, oh yeah, Harry's a vulnerable teen with no parents and no close loving relatives who care about them, but nope, he still wants to get laid too. We don't need to hear this. Even Daniel Radcliffe went against this movie, calling it his worst performance. Harry Potter is supposed to be about fantasy and the occasional action. Comedy is just not needed. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one joke in the movie that is genuinely funny.
Why is it, when something happens, it is always you three?
I love that quote.
Believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years.
Then there's the things we should hear about. In the book, Harry learns about Voldemort's childhood and early life from Dumbledore over various trips into the old man's pensive. In the movie, they condense all those down to 3 very, very short scenes. Dumbledore meeting Riddle at the orphanage and Slughorn's Horcrux memory, both real and fake. We miss out on pretty crucial memories from Voldemort, like his connection to the Gaunts and how he came upon Hufflepuff's cup. This movie does a pitiful attempt to set up Deathly Hallows. Order of the Phoenix had a few issues regarding the final 2 movies as well, but Half-Blood Prince suffers tenfold. Now this movie is called Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince after all. Of course, we need to acknowledge the Half-Blood Prince himself, Severus Snape. You barely see him in this fucking movie. He has maybe 10 scenes at max, and you never see him again. Snape is one of my favourite characters in the series, and I struggle to recall how many times he appears in this movie. Slughorn takes over his post as Potions Master, and Snape teaches defence against the dark arts, but every single one of his classes are cut from the movie, so nothing there. You see him at the opening feast, you see him with the cursed necklace, he appears when McLaggen pukes on his shoes, he talks for 2 seconds to Malfoy about the unbreakable vow he made at the beginning of the movie, he appears very briefly when Harry curses Malfoy with Sectum Sempra, he is seen talking to Dumbledore on the astronomy tower, and he appears at the end. That's 15 minutes of screen time at absolute most. If I have to credit one thing, I think his appearance at Slughorn's Christmas party is one of the best scenes in the movie.
You've just bought yourself a month's detention, McLaggen. Not so quick, Potter.
But still, 15 minutes! He's in the fucking movie title. You'd think he'd be a bit more, you know, important to the plot. And the absolute worst travesty regarding Snape in this movie? Snape's nickname, that's part of the movie title, is barely acknowledged.
You dare use my own spells against me, Potter? Yes. I'm the half-blood prince.
And that's it. That one quote. It's never brought up again. Harry never questions it. Hermione doesn't mention Snape's parents being Eileen Prince and Tobias Snape. Very little reference to Snape creating Sectum Sempra is made. Nothing is ever said about it ever again in the entire series. Snape just says that line and then walks away into the night. This movie barely qualifies to be called Half-Blood Prince with that less than half-assed attempt to make a title connection. They spend the entire movie questioning who is the Half-Blood Prince, who owns this potions book. Snape says the line at the end and then no one ever mentions it or questions a single thing again. This movie is a massive fucking train wreck in nearly every way conceivable. It is an absolute nightmare to watch. When it comes to popular movie franchises, I used to question which was worse, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, or Half-Blood Prince. It took me a while, but I've come to the conclusion that Half-Blood Prince is the worst of the two. Tokyo Drift is the only Fast and Furious movie I actually dislike, and it's one of the most boring movies I've ever seen. But it adds virtually nothing to the overall plot, so I can happily skip it and move on to the 7th movie without missing anything important. With Half-Blood Prince, as terrible as the movie is, it actually has somewhat important plot elements crucial to Deathly Hallows, so if I'm in the mood to binge watch the entire movie series, I more or less have to watch Half-Blood Prince to get the complete experience. Philosopher's Stone through Order of the Phoenix I can watch, but I just fucking loathe watching Half-Blood Prince. But this is Video Memories after all. We need a story. Gladly, I have a story. The first time I saw this in theatres, there was a constantly chatting group of women behind me. They would just not shut the hell up throughout the entire movie. Until they heard two rather iconic words.
Avada Kedavra.
And that's it. Absolute silence to the end, as if they had never read the book. There's one thing I have to compliment about the movie. It's bullshit how unprotected Hogwarts is during this scene, and I hate how they didn't bother to include the funeral, but I actually like how Dumbledore's death is portrayed. It is a genuinely good scene. Sure, the killing curse looks blue, but since in reality it's a mercy kill, I like to think it works. I actually enjoy that scene to this very day. Sure, it goes back to shit once Snape mentions his alias, but it was a genuinely good 2 minutes there. And that's it. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is still one of the absolute worst movies I have ever seen, and I despise its very existence. In case some people may ask, I have several answers on what is the best Harry Potter movie. For book faithfulness, I point to Philosopher's Stone. For special effects, Goblet of Fire. For pure action, Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now to never talk about Half-Blood Prince again. Let's continue with something cheerful. Back to the Future Part 2. The second part in this wonderful trilogy. And honestly, my least favourite movie in the trilogy. Let me stress, I don't hate Part 2. It's still a really good movie. I just don't find it as entertaining as Parts 1 and 3. They're really minor, but I'd say Part 2 has more problems than Parts 1 and 3. It means virtually nothing in the end, really. Part 2 still makes my list for top 10 movies, and I'd watch it again in a heartbeat. That thing in the hall there, it's miles better than that. So let's see how well this holds up. Okay, first we have a promo for... wait, it's E.T. Well, talk about deja vu. Hopefully Part 3 actually tries something different. I say this because I haven't actually checked it yet, we'll get to that one later. So, 20 seconds in and we get straight to the point. When we last left Marty McFly, he had a brand new pickup truck and was about to make out with his girlfriend when his lunatic scientist friend known as Doc Brown tells of the bad news featuring his kids. Is it just me or does Jennifer look different this time? It's not like she was recast or anything, but whatever. As the car prepares to take off, Biff emerges from the house and witnesses the car take off and disappear.
What the hell is going on here?
Well, that can't be good. After a cloudy title sequence, we catch up with the DeLorean as it lands in 2015 and nearly has a head-on sky collision. First things first, gotta knock out Jennifer, as she's pretty irrelevant to the plot. Upon landing in an alleyway, Marty changes clothes and learns that his son has been arrested for robbery and within 2 hours was tried, convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Within 2 hours?
The justice system works swiftly in the future now that they've abolished all lawyers.
You know, part 2 may be my least favourite, but if I have to compliment it on one thing, I love the new energy they gave to the character of Doc Brown. In the first movie, he felt like any other generic scientist. But in the sequels, he actually has some personality and can be seen as rather eccentric.
The intent here is to gain a clear perception of humanity. Where we've been, where we're going, the pitfalls and the possibilities, the perils and the promise. Perhaps even an answer to that universal question. Why?
After moving Jennifer and discussing a plan involving a guy called Griff, Marty ventures into Future Hill Valley and Doc leaves to intercept Junior. So this is Hill Valley of the future that is now Hill Valley of the past. Bullshit, the future has never looked this awesome. The real future kinda sucks when you look at this. So Marty ventures into the Cafe 80s and has a very interesting discussion with Biff about his father and is rudely interrupted by Griff, who just so happens to be Biff's grandson. So kids, what have we learnt today? The Tannins of Hill Valley are all just major assholes. To kill time, Marty has a game of Wild Gunman. What, you have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy. And then the shit hits the fan and Marty Jr. walks in, followed closely by Griff. God damn it, Doc, you had one job! The complete wimp known as Junior gets knocked out and Marty covers for him, which leads into assault, Marty being triggered at the word chicken, some reckless vandalism, and a chase around the town square.
Something very familiar about all this.
Yeah, but it's different this time because this time Marty has a hoverboard. A hoverboard! You know, those things that actually hover. Are you the creator of these things? The Back to the Future fan in me says go fuck yourself. Quick story. As a kid, I, like millions of others, wanted a hoverboard. I saw this movie, and I also saw that very infamous Zemeckis interview where he states hoverboards were real but just weren't on the market. As you'd expect, I was heartbroken and severely pissed when I found out they weren't real. As it turns out, those hoverboards don't work on water unless you've got power! Holy shit, this movie's very quotable. Griff tries to attack Marty on a rocket-powered hoverboard, but all Marty has to do is step off his board and into the water. Straight goes Biff and his cohorts into the courthouse.
Holy shit!
Marty drives off and learns that the Cubs have won the World Series. A year early, but close enough. Who would have thought, huh? 100 to 1 shot. That gives him an idea. He proceeds to buy an almanac from a local antique store listing 50 years of sports statistics and proceeds to meet with Doc in the town square. Biff marvels at the sight of a flying DeLorean. You don't see that often. Bonk! Out comes Marty Jr. Wait, there's 2 of them? That's definitely not suspicious. Doc questions what the hell happened at the courthouse. Marty explains all, and Doc realizes the sleep inducer he used earlier on Jennifer didn't knock Junior out for long enough. Great, even in the future nothing works. Oops, wrong movie. But as it turns out, it is enough to change history and protect Junior from imprisonment. Time to go home. Ah, shit, he found the book. It's just a souvenir. Doc gives a long-winded speech about time travel and decides to bin the book. And then spots that police have found Jennifer's body and are taking her home to Hilldale. Thumbprint IDs and all. Okay, first we rescue her and then we go home. Just leave the fucking book. And then Biff finds it.
So, Doc Brown invented a time machine.
Oh, now that really can't be good. Marty and Doc arrive at Hilldale just as Jennifer is dropped off. Jennifer learns that Marty's life has gone to shit after some accident involving a Rolls Royce. Hey, does George look different to anyone at all? Doc tells her to meet her at the front door, but as she approaches, she meets her older self, and that goes not well. As Marty changes his clothes and ventures into Hilldale, Biff arrives in a cab and helps himself to the DeLorean. Really not good. Doc calls Marty for help to carry an unconscious Jennifer just as Biff returns in the car. God knows where he's been. Uh-oh, heart attack. Hey old guy, you left your knuckle thingy. Doc and Marty load Jennifer into the car, and Doc announces his desire to destroy the time machine and expresses his regret at never being able to visit his favourite historical era. Such a shame. Doc sets the time circuits for 1985 and off they go.
Did we make it? Are we back?
We're back.
Hey, there's a quote for the trailer. Doc and Marty drop off Jennifer and Marty returns home. But this isn't his home. Another family lives there. Run like hell! Marty ventures throughout Hill Valley and discovers what is pretty much a war zone. Biker gangs and teenagers run riot, his brother Dave is a raging drunk, and Vice Principal Strickland is a scarred vigilante out on a mission to take down slackers. Upon entering the town square, he discovers just about the worst thing he could. Biff is running America. Well, it can't possibly get worse than that. Oh wait, he married Lorraine? Well, shit. Marty is caught and knocked out by some familiar faces and wakes up to find his mother. She's so big. Marty witnesses an assault between his mother and stepfather and questions what the hell is going on. How could Biff be her husband? How could she leave Dad for him? After asking some much needed questions, Marty learns his actual father, George McFly, has been dead for 12 years. He meets the doctor at the cemetery, who proceeds to tell him that somehow the time continuum has been disrupted, creating this new temporal event sequence resulting in this alternate reality. Oh my god, I am quoting too much. It turns out Biff stole the time machine, returned to some point in the past, gave the sports almanac to himself, and created an alternate timeline known by fans as Biff Horrific. Before Doc can destroy the time machine, they have to return to the past to fix the future, which is currently the present. Everybody got that? Marty returns to Biff's Paradise Hotel / casino / whatever. It's the courthouse. He learns that Biff received the book on November 12, 1955 from some crazy old codger with a cane. He said he was his distant relative. He didn't see any resemblance. It turns out Biff was also told to kill anyone who happened to find out about the almanac. Marty, run. A chase between Marty and Biff's goons ensue throughout the courthouse until Marty is rescued by Doc Brown on the roof. Now we have to return to 1955.
Unbelievable that old Biff could have chosen that particular date. It could mean that that point in time inherently contained some sort of cosmic significance, almost as if it were the temporal junction point for the entire space-time continuum. On the other hand, it could just be an amazing coincidence. Damn! Gotta fix that thing.
Marty returns to 1955 again. Well, this is heavy. I mean, it's like he was just here yesterday. Amazing, isn't it? The Doctor instructs Marty to go into town and track down Biff, whilst he stays to repair the time circuits, which I'm sure will totally work out. Marty tracks Biff to the town square, where he's picking up his car from a certain accident involving manure. $300 for a couple of dents? Now that's bullshit, Terry! After an attempted flirtation with Lorraine and some testicular damage for Marty, Biff returns to find old Biff in his car. He takes the young one home and explains how the almanac works, before unknowingly leaving Marty trapped in the garage. Over the next several hours, Marty witnesses a stunning punch to the jaw, listens to some strong rock and roll, and drops sandbags on Biff's goons, while Doc experiences some strong deja vu in the town square. After a strong and rather dangerous tunnel chase, Marty finally recovers the book and burns it at the Leon Estates sign. Unfortunately, due to the incoming thunderstorm, Duck cannot land the cart and is caught up in the wind.
Well, be careful! You don't want to get struck by lightning!
Oh boy. Well, the duck's gone. Really not good. Super not good even. As Marty is mourning the loss of his friend, a stranger from Western Union arrives with a very old letter for a man answering to the name of Marty at this exact location, at this exact minute, on the day of November 12th, 1955. Marty opens the letter, and it turns out the old scientist is still alive and has been living for the past 8 months in the year 1885. Marty realizes what he has to do. He races to the town square just as his younger self is sent back to the future, and this is what happens.
Doc! Okay, relax, Doc. It's me. It's Marty.
Oh, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Yeah. Oh, I know you did send me back to the future, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
Great Scott.
Doc!
You know, I think he took that rather well. Well, we shall conclude this tale later, but for now, that's Back to the Future 2. I stand by what I said earlier. It's still the worst of the trilogy, but that doesn't mean much. Sure, the future didn't turn out to be accurate, sure we didn't get hoverboards, sure we have Biff Tannen running America, and sure half the scenes in 1955 didn't match up perfectly to the scenes from the first movie. But my god, does this movie have heart, and extremely memorable quotes. It may be my least favourite of the trilogy, but I still love it to this very day. And at the end we have that anti-piracy warning. Oh fuck that, we're done here. Now, as it's video memories, I have 2 stories to tell before we can wrap it up. Story number 1 involves the box set we're looking at. I received this in 2002. Naturally, I watched all 3 movies through immediately. But here's the weird bit. I watched Back 2 last. Some may be saying, who does that? But let me explain. I was reading the back of the box, and the description for part 3 caught me off guard. It states that Marty is stranded in 1955 after a freak burst of lightning. I had seen part 1 beforehand. That was the one I saw all the way through first. I knew about the lightning bolt strike on the clock tower, but this description caught me off guard. Was there more to part 1 than I realised? And sure enough, I popped in part 3 and the first scene involved the clock tower lightning strike. Doc Brown cheering and Marty coming out of nowhere saying he had come back from the future. I was confused beyond all belief. As much as I love part 3, watching it before part 2 was a horrible idea. There's more to the story, which we'll continue next time. And then of course, we have to talk about one of the most notable and iconic world events based on this trilogy, Back to the Future Day. It was held on October 21st, 2015, and was held to celebrate the day Marty, Doc and Jennifer arrived from 1985. A lot of shit happened on that day. New Blu-ray box sets were released, the TV series was put out on DVD for the first time, the Telltale game was re-released for PS4, which was obviously a must-buy for me, come on. Wild Gunman was released for the Wii U, they even made a trailer for Jaws 19, that holographic movie seen in part 2. It was huge, even the fucking White House celebrated this date. The one thing I truly remember was how thousands of theatres worldwide, including some near myself, were running a marathon of all 3 movies back to back to back, over 6 or so hours plus intervals. Sure, I have several versions of the movie at home, but I just could not pass up this opportunity to see them all on the big screen. As you'd expect, the tickets sold out like hotcakes, but I got lucky. My family scored, and honestly, I want to say seeing them on the big screen is probably the best time I've ever had watching these 3 movies. The movies somehow were made more enjoyable this way. I found myself laughing at the movies in ways I had never laughed before. To wrap this movie up, let us relive the reaction to every Back to the Future fan that managed to score tickets to this movie marathon. I was there myself, so I know this to be truly accurate.
Alright, Doc, what's going on, huh? Where are we? When are we?
We're descending toward Hill Valley, California at 4:29 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21st, 2015.
2015?
So, let it be known that I hate travelling. I am more than content to stay at home and do my own thing. In 2008, I was forced into a 2-week break to Canada along with the rest of my family. Truth be told, I didn't actually have that bad of a time. It was April and it was still snowing, so I was more than content. Most of the time I was either out in the snow or eating ice cream and watching Family Channel. Yeah, it didn't take long for me to learn that Family is basically an American version of Disney for me. Yeah, I know there's an American Disney. I watched it regularly when I went to New York. Family just seems like a sister channel. Maybe it's just Canadian, I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. One night, my mother was making a trip to Walmart. I just wanted out of the house, so I thought I'd ride along with her. We get to Walmart, and on the DVD rack, this is what I see. Thomas Comes to Breakfast and Other Thomas Adventures. Holy shit, they have it in America. As you'd expect, I scooped up not only this, but a fair number of American DVDs. What, you thought I was going to pass them up? Don't be silly. So Thomas Comes to Breakfast hosts 8 episodes from seasons 1 and 2, all narrated by Ringo Starr. Oh, wait a minute. It's not him this time. It's not him. It's actually George Carlin this time. The weird thing is, I knew perfectly well that this was an American DVD from an American retail store in North America, and I was still surprised to hear that the narrator wasn't Ringo Starr. I don't know why, I was actually caught off guard when I heard George. I was well aware of Shining Time Station and the American dub of Thomas at this point, but nope, I was still caught off guard. I have very little to say on this one, truth be told. Other than it being American, it was a basic DVD purchase for content I'd already seen. Obviously, I'm not going to cover every DVD I purchased, at least not right now, but since this episode is going to be super short otherwise, I'll point out one more DVD. Let's take a brief look at Best of James. I have no idea where my original copy is, and obviously I could have invested time and money into buying a new copy, but I didn't want to. This one hosts 8 episodes from seasons 1 through 4, also narrated by George Carlin. No mic talk today. Surprising, yet original. It won't last. I bring up this release because James just happens to be my favourite member of the Steam team, and this caught my attention immediately. I think the most memorable portion of this DVD is actually the episode intermissions, as they feature several Season 4 songs. Cool. Just so cool. There's nothing so much cooler. I mean, you can hear the coolness of my voice. It was a happy time. I could tell you a story about my easily pleased 14-year-old brain. It's much cooler. I was in Canada for a fortnight and I bought a fair collection of US DVDs. And for some reason, I discovered that the TV I was using had an option to crop the current programming, DVD or otherwise, to my heart's content. So this is what I basically spent 2 weeks doing.
On, yelled the cars. I've got to stop, groaned James. Disaster lay ahead.
So kids, what have we learned here today? That's right, 14-year-old me was very stupid. If it's any consolation, the 24-year-old version of me hasn't changed much. I get told that every day. This has been a pretty brief episode, but next time we end the Back to the Future retrospective with my favourite movie of all time. The year is 1996. Although I wouldn't know it until much later, this was the first time I ever watched a clip from Back to the Future. It took me a while to piece it together. I remember seeing a guy in a car on a railway track, a train coming towards him, the guy says shit and runs from the car. That's all I remember. And here we are, over 20 years later, and we're looking at my number one favourite movie of all time, Back to the Future Part 3, the final part of this epic trilogy. I'm going to say this right now. I think Back to the Future Part 3 has the best destination, the best music, the best climax, and the most touching moments in the entire trilogy. And now it's time to end this retrospective on a high note. I mentioned previously that I watched Part 3 before Part 2, purely because of the description on the back of the box. Needless to say, I was confused as all hell. Not only when Marty returned after the lightning bolt strike, but also when Doc Brown first appears in 1885. There's a Dr. Emmett Brown in 1885. When the fuck did that happen? My brain hurts. So let's start at the beginning. Coming soon to video and DVD. Please don't be E.T. 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 It's fucking E.T. My god, 3 videos and all the same promos. You know, honestly, I'm willing to bet that anti-piracy warning is also at the end. Spoiler alert, it is. Oh, forget this. Featuring the greatest movie opening music of all time, Back to the Future Part 3 begins where Part 2 left off. The lightning is about to strike the clock tower, Marty is racing towards the wire, Doc Brown connects the cables, the car hits the wire and disappears into the future. Doc begins to celebrate the successful experiment, but then along comes Marty McFly racing towards him.
Doc! Okay, relax, Doc. It's me, it's Marty.
No, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Oh, I know he did send me back to the future, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
You know, I'm beginning to think he actually didn't take it that well. Doc wakes up the next day and recounts the night's events. Marty presents the letter, and Doc learns of him landing in 1885 after a freak burst of lightning. The duo learn that the older scientist has made 1885 his home, has taken a job as a blacksmith, and has buried the damaged DeLorean in an abandoned mine next to the local cemetery, with the intention of it being recovered and repaired in 1955, allowing Marty to return to the future.
We may have to blast.
Wow, respect for the dead right there. The two men search the mine and recover the DeLorean. It seems like all is going to plan. Until Copernicus the dog finds a tombstone belonging to someone called Emmett Brown. Oh boy. Erected in eternal memory by his beloved Clara. Who the hell is Clara?
Shot in the back by Buford Tannen over a matter of $80. What kind of a future do you call that?
The next day, they investigate the library records and learn about Buford Tannen and the McFly family. And eventually, they find a photo of Doc Brown, proving that it is indeed him who dies 1 week after he writes a letter to Marty. For Marty, there's only one solution to this dilemma.
After you fix the time circuits and put new tires on the DeLorean, I'm going back to 1885 and I'm bringing you home.
Doc repairs the car and prepares for Marty's departure from 1955. I'd also like to take note that it took 3 movies and 5 years just to get past November 12th. Marty takes off and lands in 1885 in the middle of a chase between a group of Native Americans and the US cavalry. The teenager takes shelter in a nearby bear cave and prepares to trek into Hill Valley when he discovers an Indian's arrow wedged into the car.
Damn, I ripped the fuel line.
Oh no. Marty eventually has to flee the car when he discovers the inhabitant of the bear cave. He races over the hill and collapses into a fence. Hours later, he wakes up and learns he is residing at the McFly farm, of all places. He meets his great-great-grandfather Seamus and his son William, the first McFly born in America. He pisses on Marty, just thought I'd say. Seamus offers to help him find his blacksmith friend. taking him as far as the railroad tracks that lead into Hill Valley, even offering to give him a new hat. The next day, Marty ventures alone into Hill Valley and finds his way into the Palace Saloon, where he meets Buford Mad Dog Tannen. He hates that name. Nobody calls him Mad Dog, especially not some duded up egg-sucking gutter trash like Clint Eastwood. Because that's his name here. This leads to a rather familiar chase across town, which leads to Marty being hanged at the brand new courthouse. It looks like the end for Mr. McFly until along comes the blacksmith.
You'll shoot the fleas off a dog's back at 500 yards, Tannen, and it's pointed straight in your head!
During this confrontation, Marty learns about the $80 owed to Mad Dog. After he flees, Duck confronts Marty about returning to 1885 rather than returning to 1985. Of course, the hostilities don't last long. Doc soon learns about his upcoming death as well as the arrival of a new schoolteacher named Clara Clayton, whom he promised to pick up, and decides to leave the Old West and return to the 20th century. There's just one problem. The DeLorean has a punctured gas tank, and without gasoline they have no hope of getting the car up to 88 mph. Marty and Doc retrieve the car and attempt to refuel it with the best alternative, really strong alcohol. It seems to work until...
Give more gas! Blew the fuel injection manifold. Strong stuff, all right.
Well, now the car is officially fucked. They can't pull the car, and it won't run on its own power with substitute fuel. But what if they can figure out a way to push it up to 88 miles per hour? That gives the duo the idea to use the local steam train to push the DeLorean up to 88. The next train is due to arrive on Monday morning. Plenty of time to work out a plan. Use the spur that runs off the main line to get up enough speed to reach 88, 3 miles out towards the bridge over Clayton Ravine. Well, sort of, the bridge won't be finished for another 9 months, but there should be enough distance to work with. Just as the men check out the ravine, they hear the call of a woman in danger, as our horses and cart are darting towards the ravine. Marty and Doc race to the rescue, with Doc catching her before her wagon full of luggage goes over into the ravine. They discover that the endangered woman is actually Clara Clayton, and Cupid fires his magic arrow. Love at first sight for Dr. Emmett Brown. Doc may have his eyes up for someone, but the plan still goes ahead. They plan ahead for Monday the 7th. On the night of September 5th, Marty and Doc attend the local town festival and get photographed next to the new courthouse clock. Wait a minute, this seems familiar. As Marty conversates with Seamus and Maggie McFly, Doc has a dance with another familiar face. You know, I'm beginning to think those two actually like each other. It all goes fine until Buford Tannen arrives and attempts to shoot the doctor in the back. It's a derringer he's using. Small but effective. Last time he used it, fella took 2 whole days to die. Bled to death inside. It was real painful. Which means Doc would be dead by about supper time on Monday. Oh boy. With the use of a frisbee, Marty comes to the rescue and blows Buford's one and only shot, which leads to him being challenged to a gunfight on Monday morning. Because Marty just cannot handle being called a coward. The next day, Marty learns that Doc spent a lovely night with Clara. Not good. We're going back to the future tomorrow. We cannot be hanging around with women. They also learn that Marty may have changed the future and endangered his own existence by agreeing to Buford's gunfight. Also not good.
Marty, you can't go losing your judgment every time someone calls you a name. That's exactly what causes you to get into that accident in the future.
What? What about my future?
That night, as they make final adjustments to the DeLorean for the journey home, Doc finally comes to the realization that he is well and truly in love with Clara, and is actually willing to remain in 1885 to be with her. After a heated debate with Marty, Doc has a choice to make. Remain in 1885 with the love of his life, or preserve the space-time continuum while he still can. He decides to opt for the latter, even going as far as to tell Clara the truth about where he's from, and it doesn't go well. Depressed, the Doctor proceeds to the saloon and does what every broken-hearted man does. Get shit-faced. Well, sorta. He kinda just holds it. On the morning of September 7th, Marty wakes up near the DeLorean. The Doc isn't there. He races to the saloon, and there he is. Still at the bar, still holding his first drink. He hasn't had a drink yet. He just likes to hold it. Marty convinces him to come back to the future with him, leading Doc to gulp down his whiskey and make for the DeLorean, and... Oh, for fuck's sake, they're on a tight schedule here! As Clara prepares to depart Hill Valley for San Francisco, and Doc Brown is fed a rather dodgy hangover cure, Buford shows up for the duel. As Marty's had some wise words with Doc and the only McFly with a backbone, he has decided to forfeit the duel.
What's that mean?
It means that you win without a fight.
Without shooting? You can't do that! Hey, you can't do that!
When Doc regains consciousness with one raging headache, they race for the back door, only to be discovered by some of Mad Dog's goons. Now Marty has a problem. If he doesn't face Buford Tannen, his good friend dies. On the train, Clara learns that her white-haired man is still deeply in love with her. She stops the train and races back to Hill Valley as Marty decides to take part in the gunfight to spare Doc's life. He offers to settle it like men, but the dude thought wrong. Well, thank God Buford didn't shoot him in the head. As the drilling dimwit approaches his victim, Marty stands up, revealing he was wearing a stove door as a bulletproof vest, and proceeds to beat the living daylights out of Buford Tannen until, in true Back to the Future style, he lands on a cart full of horse poo. As Buford is arrested for robbery, Marty and Doc race to intercept the train, just as Clara returns to town and discovers the time machine. Marty and Doc catch up with the train and borrow the locomotive, which they proceed to drive to the site of the DeLorean. Clara is determined not to lose the love of her life and races after the train as it departs with the DeLorean. She manages to catch up with the train just as Doc prepares to depart the cab and board the DeLorean, eventually alerting the Doctor to her presence. Doc realizes they'll have to take her back and proceeds to guide her towards the front of the train. They're within arm's reach when the Doctor's experimental fuel source causes the engine's boiler to explode. Both Clara and Doc find themselves hanging dangerously from the train until Marty sacrifices his hoverboard, allowing Doc safe passage to rescue Clara. As they approach the ravine, Doc is able to free Clara and Marty is left to return to the future alone. 100 years later, Marty lands in 1985 and rides along the rails to the amazement of Hill Valley locals, until the DeLorean grinds to a halt in front of a diesel locomotive. Marty throws open the door and escapes just before the train rams into and destroys the DeLorean beyond repair. I'd like to comment on the lack of concern with those citizens at the level crossing. They see a tricked out DeLorean riding slowly along a railroad track with a man dressed as a cowboy inside. Less than 2 minutes later, they hear an explosion and they see a freight train heading along the same line, going in the opposite direction. Not a single person races towards the cowboy to see if he's alright after narrowly escaping death. They'll crowd around when someone gets covered in horse shit or gets punched in the jaw, but nothing when something ultra serious happens. Nice people in Hill Valley. Marty runs home and discovers his family are all back to normal, as is Biff. But that's enough of them. He speeds to Jennifer's house and sure enough, she's right where they left her, sound asleep on the porch. The two of them head off towards Hilldale, where Jennifer describes a terrible nightmare involving them in the future. She's convinced it's all a dream until she witnesses an asshole named Needles challenge Marty to a truck race. Uh-oh. Of course, Marty is smart enough at this point and backs out of the race at the last second.
Did you do that on purpose?
Hey, you think I'm stupid enough to race that asshole?
Wait a minute, that means that dream wasn't a dream. Marty takes her to the wreckage of the DeLorean, mourning the fact that his friend will never come back to the future. Until all of a sudden, a souped up steam train appears out of nowhere, piloted by none other than Dr. Emmett Brown. The crazy old scientist actually built another time machine, so much for endangering the space-time continuum. The old man introduces his new family, his wife Clara and his offspring Jules and Vern, and even Einstein. He actually went back for him. So touching. Doc presents Marty with a gift of the photo of the two of them at the clock in 1885 and shares some final wise words with them.
Your future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one. Both of you.
And with that, Doc Brown lifts the train into the air and departs his friends for times and places unknown. And that's Back to the Future 3. As stated numerous times, this is my favourite movie in the trilogy and my favourite movie of all time. I've loved Back to the Future for over 15 years now, and I always come back to the trilogy at least twice a year. Sure, Part 2 may have the worst plot, but I care not a jolt when I revisit the trilogy. Every time I watch all three movies, I have the absolute time of my life, and it always ends on a high note when I come to part 3. As stated in part 2, I watched the movies on Back to the Future Day, and I had the time of my life. And when part 3 was run at the end of the night, that was certainly no exception. Not only did I learn that I knew the movie quotes way too well, but it was simply the greatest movie experience of all time. To see Marty and Doc race across the desert, dragging the car, to see the repeated lightning bolt strikes in Hill Valley, to see Doc Brown, my favourite character in the series, fall in love under the stars, and most definitely to see the train pushing the DeLorean towards the ravine, which is still the greatest climax to any movie I have ever seen in my entire life. I love the movie series to death, I cannot say it enough, and I cannot praise it enough. Granted, there are a number of movies I'd pick over 1 and 2, but as a whole, the trilogy is the greatest pack of movies I have ever seen. The Toy Story and Fast and Furious franchises do a lot of things right for me, but in my heart, they will never beat Back to the Future. And thus ends this long retrospective. When I began Video Memories with these 2 videos, I knew deep down I'd have to cover this trilogy at some point. These movies were my livelihood, and I had many stories relating to them. I had even made several videos for YouTube regarding them. It was inevitable in the end. And now, it's over. Christmas is approaching, and I say we end this year on a childhood high note. As a kid, there were 2 things I always hoped for when Christmas rolled around. Mass amounts of snow and good Christmas TV. As an adult, I still hope for the same, but when I was young, I always felt overjoyed at the sight of my backyard being overloaded with snow. I've never been a materialistic person, I have only a few goals in mind. Now sometimes it didn't snow. Like in 2013, there was no snow. That year was a big fucking letdown. There's nothing I can really do in that department. As for Christmas TV, I always turned my eyes to Cartoon Network and occasionally Disney. Every year, towards the end of December, the Christmas movies and special Christmas episodes of my favourite TV shows were run, and I was set for life. But back in the old days, what if there wasn't anything you liked running on TV? Why, you'd break out a Christmas video, like this one, Christmas Looney Tunes from 1996. I have no idea when I bought mine, but apparently it was $2.99. Fascinating. So let's have a look at what this offered to the child in me. Christmas Looney Tunes offers 9 classic winter-filled Looney Tunes cartoons running close to 60 minutes. This hour-long video features Fright Before Christmas, Gift Wrapped, Snow Business, Snow Excuse, Weasel While You Work, Cracked Quack, The Iceman Ducketh, Riff Raffy Daffy, and Bugs Bunny's Christmas Carol, a Looney take on the classic 1843 Dickens tale, A Christmas Carol. Because every animated company out there has to do their own version. I'd like to take note that my favourite animated Christmas movie is Mickey's Magical Christmas. Just thought I'd say. Other than listing what's on this video, there's very little I have to say about Looney Tunes. It's one of the greatest cartoon franchises ever created, and I'm willing to bet nearly every human being with access to a TV in the past 60 years has witnessed the marvel of Bugs Bunny. Even as a 24-year-old, I'll praise Looney Tunes to my dying day. Well, that and another cartoon series from a rival company, but I'll cover that one in a bit. It's very rare that I never become sick of a TV show, but I can honestly say I remember it happening with these 2. There's also Ed, Edd n Eddy, but unfortunately I only have 1 DVD for that series, plus a couple of things in the Recordable Friday series, but whoop-de-fucking-do on that one. Anyway, other than Taz being incredibly dim-witted, the concern of possible animal cruelty with wrapping a bulldog up as a Christmas present, and why the hell does Granny need that much birdseed? I don't know what else to say. I've described my Christmas desires for the past 10 or so years, I've mentioned the cliche of every film company ever doing a Christmas Carol, I've mentioned how well Looney Tunes holds up for me. I could even say that this video holds up very well, considering I haven't watched it in nearly a decade. And it could potentially be one of the best Looney Tunes videos I own. I may not have much to say, but the outcome is great. Booyah! End on a high note. I couldn't even end that well with Chases, Races and Runaways, and I praised that as one of the best. Even my memories are full of shit. So that's it for this year. Video Memories will return in early January with one of the first videos I ever owned. and no doubt stories will be shared and old stale jokes will be rehashed. Until then, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy whatever the fuck you celebrate.